I was thinking about this earlier, and Kawhi Leonard's, resume, and I'll just give you the quick thumbnail sketch, it's platinum. 5-time All-NBA, 2-time NBA champ. Both times he won the NBA Finals, MVP.
Yep.
7-time All-Defense, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. And listen, there's been some all-stars and some borderline superstars that have been a bit enigmatic over the years. Not many. Most are reliable. Kobe reliable. MJ reliable. Obviously, Shaq was, for the most part, with his weight fluctuations.
Until he got heavy,
Yeah, but reliable.
Yep.
LeBron, obviously, reliable. Steph Curry, etc. Kawhi Leonard, he's got to be the most enigmatic superstar, certainly now. And maybe of the last 20, 30 years, like he's just an odd guy. How do you not alert the Clippers that you had surgery, which is what happened?
Yeah, so for those who didn't see this story, because nobody knew that he had a torn ACL, or at least a partially torn ACL, until yesterday.
Although you surmised from minute one that was the case.
Yep, and I'll go back to that in the series previous. Who was that series against Denver? No, who did they play in that series?
They opened up with the Mavericks. They fell down 0-2. Oh, my God, everything's a blur.
Yeah.
So it was the Dallas Mavericks. Then it was Utah Jazz.
I was like, who the heck did they play in the second round? So the Utah Jazz, he bumps knee. At least that's what they said, bumps knees. But when you go back and looked at it, he didn't actually bump knees. He kind of just non-contact limped off the court. That always tells you it's an ACL. They said that it was, a knee sprain, that he'd be back in a couple of days. Maybe it led to a week, and then obviously he didn't play in the Clippers series in the Western Conference Finals, which then made you sure that it certainly wasn't a knee sprain. It was likely an ACL, but they never told anybody. And what's worse is that the Clippers didn't tell anybody because they probably didn't know, right? When you extrapolate what has subsequently happened, which is Kawhi Leonard had surgery on a partially torn ACL. That's what we heard this morning, probably happened last night. And it was only because he told them, hey, guys, I got surgery. They had no idea.
Come on.
Which is, it makes you can't help but think back to what happened in San Antonio when he had the quad injury. And
he was coming to New York to see his doctors. That's why he was connected to the Knicks.
Misdiagnosed was the word that kind of was thrown around in San Antonio, and then the lack of trust of the San Antonio doctors. And so he's coming to New York, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, dude, he's going to get traded to the Knicks, right? Like, what's happening? It was just like all this, I don't know, smoke and confusion, and he ultimately goes to Toronto. We know he wins a championship. He's on minutes restrictions, but there's just this, it's like this cloak and dagger game that always seems to be floating around Kawhi Leonard. And I guess you deal with that if you're the Clippers or whatever team he's on, because he's so good and he has the ability to take over a game. And we know when he gets into, critical moments, whether it's in the regular season or in the postseason, he's going to rise to those occasions. But I don't know. It feels like there's a trust thing here that it's got to be hard to deal with if you're the Clippers. And if I'm the Clippers, I'd be seriously upset about this. I'm stop short of being, pissed and yelling and screaming and, making something public. But I'd be internally upset about this.
Oh, but it would do you nothing because you're still going to throw the max contract at his doorstep, when he opts out for 21-22. He is, I use the word enigmatic again. He's not a leader. He's a great player. And, that resume that I just ran through, that mirrors, we talk about the great Kobe. A matter of fact, you can make the case quite easily that through the age of 30, Kawhi Leonard's resume is superior to that of LeBron at the age of 30, Kobe at the age of 30, and maybe even Michael Jordan at the age of 30, because Jordan didn't do a lot of winning until he started getting a little bit later. So it took all those years to get by the Pistons.
And especially if you throw in the DPOYs.
Well, he's got 2 of those.
I know.
And 7-team All-Defense and 2 championships. And both times he was the Finals MVP. Different franchises. Shows his versatility, his adaptability. But, I'm going to make a point that's going to be, or it's more of an opinion, that will be roundly shot down, very rarely disagreed with, and that's fine. This is not a hot take or anything. He's obviously a great player, but I would be, not if I'm the Clippers, because the Clippers are the kind of team, like if he bounced from there, then you're stuck with George, and Paul George is the number one. I don't mean stuck as a diss, but if he's your number one, then you're stuck with Paul George. If he's your number 2, that's fine.
That's right.
But if Kawhi leaves, and I don't know that he will, but if he leaves, the Clippers transform back into an organization that nobody really wants to go near. And so they're out of desperation. They need to resign him. But if I am the Knicks, or if I am the Heat, or if I am other teams that maybe have these dreams of Kawhi coming once he opts out for 21-22, I got to be honest with you, Teague. I'd be very reticent to give him that contract.
Yeah, I would too.
Very reticent. For multiple reasons.
Yes, one, because what we're talking about now, it seems like there's always a mistrust between Kawhi and the organization, but he's injury prone, dude. He's always hurt.
The main reason.
He's always hurt. And look, most of the things are minor. It's a quad injury that he can play through. It's, I need to take a rest day because I don't want to play back to backs, and these maintenance days are important to me. And but now you have the ACL, which who knows what that's going to lead to, because once you have an ACL injury, you tend to overcorrect, and then you hurt something else on the other side. It's not always the case, and maybe he'll do it right and balance himself, physically as he gets back in playing shape, and have a long off season this year as opposed to the shortened off season of last season, and it's even longer because he's been chilling now for the last month or so. So, I mean, I think that I would trust his health, but I couldn't guarantee it, BT. And it reminds me of how we talk about Anthony Davis a little bit. Like, we always want to believe that Anthony Davis is past that, but is he ever really past it?
Nope.
He's not. He got hurt again this year.
Not until he is.
That's exactly right. And Kawhi Leonard, it's now going on 5 straight seasons, going back to San Antonio, where he's had some issue physically that has kept him from being at the top of his game from start of regular season till end of postseason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Teak, there's an obvious fragility to his physical well-being, his game, which is what you just talked about. There's an erraticness, and I don't mean, what's Kawhi doing out at it? Like, is he in trouble? I don't mean that. I don't mean that at all. I think I don't know what he's like behind closed doors. I don't know that anybody really does, except his tight inner circle. So I guess long ago I learned to stop guessing what people like behind closed doors. But he's never in the police blotter, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's a really good guy. He's just quiet and a little bit quirky.
Yep.
But at the age of 30, with a surgically repaired knee now, going on another franchise, if he leaves, that will be his 4th franchise. He's played 10 seasons. Only twice he's played in the 70s. Now, a little misleading in the sense that this year was only a 72-game season, and last year was, 60 in the bubble, right? So when you look at, Basketball Reference and you see 57 games it was, okay. It's a little misleading. His 10 seasons have not been 82-game seasons, but roughly 800 games in terms of availability as a pro. He's only played in about 570.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like those odds to get better as he gets older.
Yeah.
And then you mix in, he's not a leader. He's just not. He's not an outward visible leader. He's not a leader by showing up every night.
He's an on-court leader.
Well, he's an on-court leader. Yeah, well, no doubt. And he's one of the best players I've ever seen in terms of two-way prowess. There's no question. But he's not a leader in terms of, some guys lead by, their mouth, and this. Some guys lead by showing up every day. He leads neither. When he's on the court, he lets his stats do the talking, and usually wins follow. But I don't know if he was 28, it would feel a little different. I don't know if I'd be rushing to sign him to a 5-year deal.
Yeah, I think. I mean, but if you're somebody else, if the
Clippers, I have to.
You have to.
If I'm somebody else, that's where my reluctance would kick in.
If you're the Clippers, you have to. But if you're also the Clippers and Ty Lue, I don't know if Ty Lue has this kind of pull or this kind of relationship with Kawhi to do what I'm going to suggest. But, when we talk about like this maintenance, philosophy that a lot of these players, not a ton of them, to be honest with you, it's only a handful that need maintenance days. Like, I'm taking this day off. Yep. I'm not going to play back-to-backs. Only a handful of guys that actually do that to the point where you recognize it, like you notice it. Kawhi is one of those.
Are we throwing Beat in there too, or is that more out of necessity?
I think he's more out of necessity.
Yeah.
I think he's so big and like he just gets nicks because he's huge. He's 270, whatever.
I think he's more than that. I think he's 285.
You're right. You're probably right because his lower body is massive, man. He's got tree trunks for legs. But Ty Lue needs to have a conversation with Kawhi and basically say, we need you to be what you were suggesting. We need you to be available more often than you are. Now, I understand that you're buying into this maintenance day philosophy, and it keeps you fresh, but it also doesn't prepare you for the grind that happens as the season goes on. And so ultimately you get into the postseason and something breaks down or something goes wrong, or, the chemistry, forgetting anything physical, the chemistry of the team just isn't right. As we saw that in year one of him with the Clippers last season when they got bounced from the bubble pretty early. And so I think Ty Lue, it's his responsibility to have that conversation with Kawhi. Now, I don't know how Kawhi is going to receive that.
I don't think he would have any beef, but I don't think it would motivate him to change.
I don't think it would either.
I just think he's his own guy.
But he has to change. Like he has to go to a different level of leadership if this Clippers team wants to be successful.
I don't expect that.
I don't either, but I think he has to go there. So who pushes him to go there? It's not Ballmer. I mean, maybe,
he could jump around courtside as much as he wants. That's not going to do anything for him. Kawhi's like, just cut the check.
It's probably not Paul George.
Right? No, it's nobody.
It's not Patrick Beverly.
No, Kawhi's his own cat.
It's Ty Lue, and I don't know if Ty Lue can actually get that done. If he does, I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, my God, that would be an incredible accomplishment.
If we see a different Kawhi, I'm playing everyday coach. Only time I'm not going to play is if I'm legitimately hurt.
Yep.
I'm going to show these guys. I'm going to be the example. I'm going to be there every day. I'm not going to tell you when we're going to practice. I'm letting you handle that. Like all those things that we've heard over the last couple of years that have been disruptive to success for this Clippers team, we need Kawhi to fix. And Ty Lue's the only one that can get him to do that.
But even with that hope, right? I still feel as if it's a fruitless chase.
Pipe dream.
But yeah, because I'll tell you why. Just based on the logistics of the calendar, he's going to miss half the year.
Yeah.
So automatically, his age 30 season is half compromised. Mm-hmm. And then when he does come back, if there's no interruptions or setbacks, and I don't think there will be. Modern medicine's good enough. Partially torn ACL, he'll be fine.
So surgery now, 8 months. That's
a little less for what I read. A little less. So probably not much though. Maybe I was going to say. I was thinking January, late January.
Half a year. So it's January. So he's going to miss the early part of the season.
Yeah, he'll miss, and they're going to look to start in October again, as Silver said recently. So he'll miss 25, 30 games, no big deal. But then you just know once he comes back, he's going to be on a minutes restriction, as he should be, and invariably he'll take some. Back-to-back. They don't play as many back-to-backs, but he will get some other maintenance days.
Yeah.
So he'll miss the first half of the season because he won't be in uniform, and you'll know he'll miss 15, 20 more just based on trying to keep him right.
Yeah.
And work him up to speed, and then you go into age 31. So, and the other issue, and I think this complicates Kawhi even feeling the need to change.
Yeah.
Because he's got 2 championships. Nobody in our business could get on the air and critique him as a non-champion. He is a champion, and both times he was the MVP. And that has served as great fuel, great incentive for many players over the years because we dangle that rightly or wrongly, and I say mostly wrongly. It drives me crazy that we do this, and we try not to do it as much as others, but, we get sucked up in it too. But he's a 2-time champ, so he's got all the money in the world. He's going to get another max deal. So where is the motivation to change?
Yeah.
Where is the motivation to change?
There isn't.
There's none.
There isn't. And
that's why I wouldn't want him if I'm another team.
So I'm looking at the year. So
not on a 5-year deal.
2014, that's the year that he won the championship in San Antonio. Was he the defensive player of the year that year?
He was it. He's got it twice.
But I don't know if it might have been that year.
I thought it was the next year.
It probably been the next year because that year he only played 64 games.
I thought it was the next year.
Right, so 64
It was 2015,
games.
it was.
So 2015, he won DPOY. He played 72 games that year.
Which is the second most he's ever played.
That's right. 74 was the following year.
Correct.
And then he played 9. We already missed that.
Yep, with the quad.
Then he changes to Toronto, goes to Toronto. 60 games he played.
Out of 82, by the way.
82. 60 out of 82. Because we remember all of those maintenance days. We're like, dude, what is this? I mean, it's just the same story.
Yeah.
And then he messes around and wins a championship. So he's a legend, right? It worked. It worked for him in a sense. Then last year, he played 57. Now, the season was truncated. I think it was 65 games that year, whatever it was. But it was a lot of talk about
60 change.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the chemistry issue last year. 57 of those games, they didn't have a full roster together frequently enough, so they get bounced early in the postseason. This year, he plays 52 out of 72. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just 500. I wrote it down. I was doing this early before the show. Possible 800 plus games in uniform. 576 he's played.
Yeah.
And again, do you believe that's going to get better as he ages. Now, listen, we're almost burying the lead. I mean, these are many things most people know about Kawhi, but at the end of the day, it's really a turnoff. Forget about what I do for a living. It's a turnoff as an NBA fan who's been invested in this league since the time I was 7 or 8 years old. For a guy to think that he doesn't have to let the team know that he had surgery.
Yeah.
Like, that's what drives the average fan away from the NBA quicker than any sport. I know they got the hammer. I know they've got the juice, and most times they flex it properly. But that's just incredibly unprofessional.
That's right.
Come on. You're still a pro athlete, an employee of the team.
You have a responsibility. I know you're a multimillionaire, but you have a responsibility.
Come on, man. Give them a heads up. That's weak. That would piss me off if I owned the team.
Me as well.
Legitimately piss me off.
But they can't say anything.
Of course. Here, Kawhi,
and
sign the contract.
And they won't say anything.
No, they're going to go bounce. He's like, okay, I'm leaving.